Acts 9:31. So the church throughout all Judea and Galilee and Samaria had peace and was being built up, and walking in the fear of the Lord and in the comfort of the Holy Spirit, it multiplied. Thank you so much for standing for the reading of God's word. You can have a seat.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. I'm excited to spend way too much time with you and drag this Sunday out well into the afternoon hours. And if you don't like it, I have the microphone. No, I'm kidding. We'll most likely get out of here on time. Hey, I really am. If you're new here, you're like, what is happening? It's a different Sunday. I'll give you a little disclaimers as to why, okay? Here's a few ways to set it up. We're gonna come and we're gonna spend today recapping where we've been for the past 8 weeks, okay? If it's your first time back in church, it's gonna feel a little strange. Just stay with me though. You'll get a glimpse of our heart. Here's why today is gonna be different. First, usually we take a section of scripture, work our way through it and try to see, hey, who is God? What does he have to say about me? And in the response to that, what does life with him look like? Now that's a typical Sunday. Today's going to be a non-typical Sunday. So instead of more of that traditional sermon feel, if you're familiar with church, it's more of almost like a spiritual state of the union. The second thing that's gonna mark today, I'm gonna try to read my notes. If you're typically here Sundays, I love notes. I use them as reference, but I don't often read from them. Today I'm gonna try to read them. Here's why. I'm John, and I'm one of 4 elders here at the Springs. I wanna read this because I want to represent a unified voice on behalf of the elders. So while Brandon, Todd, and Oscar, they don't have the ability to stand on this and we all deliver it together, I do want you to hear this as one unified message. The final thing is, okay, when we started this process of 8 weeks, praying through, giving campaign, finding a home, we said, hey man, here's gonna be a standard we're gonna use is over communication. Why? We want to honor everyone. We get, man, everyone in this room, you're coming from various church backgrounds, views on God, you love him, you don't like him, you're wrestling with him, you're not really sure. We just decided, man, we are gonna over communicate. That same posture of over communication we started then, we want to continue to honor today. That shared, I want to frame where we're going to go by just telling 2 stories. About a year ago, Taylor and my wife, we were talking about our family situation. We love it. We have a 7-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 2-year-old. A year ago, though, we had just come out of a moment or a season, getting through the night, kiddos, all that type of thing, and we were just tired. And we were sitting there, it's like, I can't wait for the future of sleep. It's going to be amazing. And then we'd been saying that enough, we're on a date night, and we just started to talk about, hey, this season, while it is a little hard, and there are honestly like challenging moments, we don't want to miss a moment. Because one day, we do believe, Lord willing, if we still have breath in our life in the future, every day is a gift. But man, we'll look back and we'll love those times of them waking us up in the morning and what now feels like low-key sleep torture might one day actually feel like love. You know, what a war of attrition is at bedtime might one day look back and be like, oh, but they let us pray over them and tuck them in. You know, it might be a harder time, but we don't want to miss a moment. We started using this line, even as a couple, it's familiar. It's this line, these are the good old days. These are the good old days. To anchor us in the present. My wife, she even went out and one day she saw this, she bought it. If you were to come to my house, there's an entranceway on the right and it just sits right on there. That's my first story. Here's my second. It was Wednesday before the finish of Finding a Home campaign. Wednesdays, I gather with my community group. I'm in community with the elders here at the Springs. We'd spent with much of our body every Wednesday for 8 weeks praying and fasting over the opportunity, the 18 acres, all that stuff. Well, there we are, and where do Christians go when they want to break a righteous Christian fast? We went to Torchy's Tacos, right? Now, if you're unfamiliar with that, it literally has lighthearted demonic branding, and we were there in glorious defiance. But that queso, I'm telling you, a little Diablo sauce, I don't have enough time to do this. Here's the reason I'm sharing it though. I want to invite you into what did we do that night? We're sitting there, there's a 6-top table, we had to pull up 2 chairs. What did we do? Did we spend Wednesday night in prayer and in fasting being like, Lord, release all 8 million, make it happen, would you do it? You need to know, we certainly asked him. We certainly asked him. That is not what we spent Wednesday doing, wasn't it? We sat at that table, we looked back on this time, and all we did was tell stories of life change. How we had seen that week in our body. And then throughout this process, because don't get me wrong, guys, fundraising, stewardship, generosity, finances, where your treasure is, there your heart will be. There's a reason as soon as people come to talk about money, everyone's guard immediately goes up. And throughout this process, we just told stories for 2 hours of how we had seen the kingdom of God demonstrate itself in our lives and then through this body. I'll tell you some of those stories today. We literally, at the end of it, there's a moment where we took a picture. Here, I think we got a picture we could show you. This is us at the end of it, and we put all hands in. We didn't go all hands in on, Lord, give us 8 million. We asked. We went all hands in on, Lord, we want to keep watching you do this, and we want to do it together for decades. Make us faithful. We did not say the line, but as I've been thinking and reflecting, you know, in that moment, what we were doing, we were reminding ourselves, these are the good old days. To where just like a family where you go through a hard season or a hard moment, perhaps even left with a little bit of confusion, disenchantment, you still remind yourself, if God is in the midst of this, I don't want to miss a moment of it. The reason I share that is I really do want to introduce to you guys that on behalf of me and the elders, we believe these are the good old days. Now, some of you, the cynic in the room, and if that's you, we honor you. We are glad that you are here. You might be thinking, you don't really mean that. That's just a hype talk. You didn't get the 8 million, and you're just coming and kind of doing cheerleader rah-rah. It would be funny if I had pom-poms. You're welcome to think that. I hope and pray that as you listen to what we have to share with you, you come to see a different vision and view. I understand people's skepticism when it comes to the local church or perhaps leaders like me. But I'm telling you, the resolve that is in my heart and the heart of the elders is we want God at the center of our lives, at the center of this church. And we think he is. His presence is not determined by an outcome. It's determined by the transformation and the faithfulness of his people. That is who we've always been. That is who we will always be, with or without a long-term facility. These are the good old days. I hope to show you that today in 3 ways. One, I just do need to recap kind of where we've been. Some of you, maybe you joined halfway through this process, you need a little reminder. I want to recap where we've been, but then I want to come back to the text that we used when we first launched this. Acts chapter 9, verse 31. Just one verse with beautiful truths. We talked about who we were. I'm literally going to come back and remind my heart and yours to say who we are and who we must always be. Because if we lose that by faith, if we lose that, this will not be the good old days. And then finally, we'll close by talking about practically and then spiritually, what comes next? Y'all ready? If not, I am. All right, some of y'all are like, that's unnecessarily intense. Here's where we are. We're talking about how these are the good old days. I do want to start by just framing up some quick context, though, for where we've been. I want to ensure that we're all on the same page. So let me kind of recap these past 8 weeks. I'm going to do this in 3 sections. I'm going to review the limitations we faced. Why did we even do this in the first place? The options we examined. What were all the things we considered? And then what was the solution we recommended? Now, if you've been in this and you get it, this will be redundant for you. So please stay with me. The first theme, the limitations we face. Why do we do this? We considered a facility generally because we are running out of room on Sundays. Even this service here, we added this service, 2022. We are beginning to fill here and in kids' ministry. We showed you guys a growth slide. If you remember when we first did this, I'm recapping much of the talk that we gave 8 weeks ago. We showed that over just the past year, we could have gone back further, but just the past year, total attendance on average is up 22%. Adult attendance grew 24%, kid attendance grew 18%. Sure, cool. Here's what you gotta know. One of the things we did talk about that we were most excited for was the membership growth. Here at the Springs, when Jesus said, the gates of hell will not prevail against you, he's speaking of his bride, the church. The rhythm of the New Testament is you see his bride, the church, carried out in local communities of faith. Gatherings, to use his metaphor, of brothers and sisters in pursuit of God. We take real seriously the sacred privilege to not just come and go, but to be committed to one another out of reverence to God. That shared, we really celebrated. What did we love? Was the membership growth. That as the Springs grew, let's just think about adults, by 24%, membership grew by 44%. What did that mean? That in a culture where commitment to a church is transient, it's based on the flavor of the week, and to some degree, I get it, man. I'm not even against it. What we saw was people didn't just want to come and go. By faith in God and then willingness to trust his people, they had a heart to even commit. And by God's grace, grow. It reflected the posture of our heart. We really do care more about health than we do growth. That was the limitations we faced. We showed you guys a picture about how, man, if everything just keeps going, we'll have to look at 3 services this fall. Well, that's not off the table, man. There's severe limitations that come with it. So that takes us to the second thing. What were the options we considered? What are the options we considered? Because any wise, faithful leader or shepherd, they don't know the future. But they are responsible for caring for the present in light of what may come. So that looked at what options did we examine. We shared in that talk, and again, if you want all the details of every pro and con, we outlined them. Go back 8 weeks ago. To recap for you though, the first option, we just keep adding services. Second option, we plant another church or satellite. Third option, purchase McKenna. Fourth option, they will not let us. Some of y'all didn't believe me. They won't let us. We've tried. They literally said, will you please stop asking? That's how much we tried, right? Revitalize gently and graciously in partnership with another church family and facility. 5, do nothing. Turn them away. It's fine the way it is. You know, that's cool if you're going to the neighborhood pool and you want to make sure that the occupancy rate is honored because kids are running around everywhere. It's not the same thing when it comes to the kingdom of God. We've never had an intentional plan or strategy for growth. Our only strategy has been you can actually experience intimacy with God. And you know what intimacy will evoke in you? Maturity, beauty, righteous power. Get to know him, become like him. Greatest adventure of your life. It's been a group of us for years simply committed to that one vision and calling. And then God sent some people, and we are grateful that he has. So to review these options, we realized they were either more about reaching a whole new community than relieving our current church family, or to put more plainly, they simply just weren't feasible for us. While we know we always have the option to add additional service, if you remember, that choice comes with significant limitations, not to mention it doesn't even resolve some of the challenges that we are facing. So knowing this, we were left seriously considering every option. We considered properties across the city and beyond. We knew we needed a piece of land or a facility that could fit our current body, as well as, Lord willing, its future growth if he so saw fit. We wanted a location that was in our community, but also at an affordable and fair price. Something that, as you know, if you live here, is increasingly hard to find. With all these factors and considerations in mind, we came and we brought before the body a recommended solution. Third part, the solution we considered. We brought before the body the option to purchase 18 acres worth of land to one day, Lord willing, build a home on. There'd be 10 acres for $4.5 million, an additional 8 acres to support for $3. The extra $500,000 would go to fees, architecture to figure out the whole thing for phase 2. We came when we began the campaign, we started by the grace of God with an amazing $2 million. That left us looking to raise $6 million over the course of 8 weeks, right? This is hopefully familiar to many of us. And then by the amazing grace of God, we raised $3.8 million out of our 6, or if you want to look at the total now, because we're at the end of this process, we raised $5.8 million out of our $8 million goal, just under 25%, or 75%. I've never been gifted at math, I'm a feeler. That shocks none of you, okay? Hearing we raised so much, that is a stunning and glorious amount of generosity. We know that as I share this, it hits all of us differently. Like many of you, if you are a faithful member of the Springs, you see that we got just shy of 75%. And honestly, while you trust God, you feel that twinge of sadness, perhaps discouragement. Maybe others of you, like you're bummed, it would have been cool, but you're fine, we'll just keep going. And then for the few, and we honor you, perhaps you feel relief. You're grateful for whatever reason. You had concerns, did not feel a sense of freedom or release. And then others, this is your first time back at church and you can't get past the fact we're actually still talking about money. Give us another chance. We'd love to see you again, but we don't feel bad about it. Wherever your feelings are at, we're glad you're here. With that, I want to share with you our feelings. So after reviewing where we've been, okay, you got to stay with me through the journey. After reviewing where we've been, that leaves us honestly and emotionally asking an obvious question. How should we feel? Or maybe you want to know, how do the elders feel? To give insight into that, I want to share with you, there was a moment with my wife, Taylor. It was the Monday after the close, the Monday after the Sunday with the close of the giving campaign. She came to me, and I knew the results of 3.8 million. She came to me and she asked me, John, how do you feel? I started to think on it, and before I could answer her, she kindly interjected, are you sad? Immediately, here was my honest thought, sad. That emotion had not yet crossed me. I thought in the moment, well, I feel excited. I feel grateful that I'm gonna go back to having just one job, right? And then honestly, I feel kind of like, all right, God, I'm excited to see what you do. But then as she asked it though, here was the honest thing, the reflection that came in my heart. I said out loud to her, you know, Taylor, I wouldn't have said I was sad. But if right now, if we hadn't raised 3.8 million, instead God had released through the faithfulness of this body, 6.2 million, I certainly think I would feel happier. I certainly think I would feel happier. It was in that moment I came to realize two very obvious things. I really did feel good, and I really did feel a sense of grief. I share this story to remind myself, as well as you and me, we're all human. If you're a member here and you're hearing this news, from myself to the elders to the staff to all of our members, it is natural, even in response to this, wherever you're at, to feel a sense of grief or perhaps confusion anytime you don't meet your goals. It doesn't mean that anyone did anything wrong or that God is not with us. It's a fair and healthy response. And you got to know this, if that's you, God can handle it. Now, as I use this word grief, I also have to honor some of us, all of us, have been through much harder moments than this. So maybe a better word is bummed, disappointed, disheartened, discouraged. Wherever you would appropriately put that feeling, I just want to clarify in a category of grief. One of the things you got to hear though, even with grief, there's a unifying theme. I think it's righteous when followers of God feel both grief and sacred peace at the same time. Church, we asked God for clarity. He answered. The elders felt compelled to present this opportunity, though we also shared from the beginning. We did not know what he would do. We felt responsible to bring it before you, not to tell you how to respond. While we certainly hoped all the resources would come in, we trust him and his plan for this church. He is the one who got us here. We have him, in the words of the philosopher Bob Marley, every little thing is going to be all right. Amen. Jesus is better than Bob Marley, but that quote still fits though, okay? So to summarize, how do we feel? We feel some grief. I'm not lying about that. But we still feel good. And this is what we'll talk about at the end. We do feel there's some room to grow. So we've spent a little time talking about that sense of grief, or maybe in a more appropriate word, discouragement, disenchantment, whatever best fits. But I also want to share, well, how could we feel good? Because some of you sit there like, you don't really mean you feel good. Yes, I do. I want to share with you how. I want to share with you why. But in order to do that, I need to remind us. We define success by 100% of our members praying and following God's lead. Over the 8 weeks, we focused on two themes, clarity in unity. Clarity, that simply means how much of the 6 million do we raise? It's very obvious. And then unity. How much of our body partnered with us in this endeavor? One of the things that's true throughout the book of Acts, we'll learn it later on, is the local church is meant to mark or operate with unity. What unity is not biblically is uniformity. Unity does not have to be unanimous, but it is meant to have a spirit of righteousness. I'm with you. Literally at the end of the service last time, a gentleman came down who I'd met with, who was part of the 1%, who said, I've prayed, I've asked God, I don't feel led. The literal 1%. But then he said, I want you to know though, through this process, you have restored my faith in church leaders. You know what we had with him? Unity. Even though his stance was not unanimous. You track with that, church? That's called real health. It's all we want to be about. That shared. I want to clarify a few reasons. Why do we feel good? First reason, we celebrate the unity of our body as shown by the participation rate. Okay, let me remind you. A few weeks ago, I came up here. It was at week 6 out of 8 weeks of the Finding a Home prayer and giving campaign. At that moment, 18% of our body had participated. This was when I shared that the elders, we felt excited, confused, and then trusting. You can go back, you can find that announcement, you can see it. For the past 2 weeks, you have to know, the elders, we have sought God in prayer to release the full 6 million. But I'm telling you the truth, our hearts were mostly asking, will you please unite the body? That takes us to the second thing. From 18% 2 weeks later, by God's grace, 62% of our members participated in the Finding a Home campaign, reflecting, never been the best at math, but a 44% increase. We don't know who gave or how much individuals gave, but the unity shown by our body, man, the elders took there as an indicator of it is okay to feel good. You may remember, even when I first announced this a few weeks ago, I said, hey guys, even if we get all the 6 million in, if that just comes through 30% of the body, the elders are going to be up on the stage saying, y'all, we don't know what to do. We don't know what to do. And by the Spirit of God, so many of you, you went and in prayer, you gave over and above for the first time in your life. You gave over and above as an act of faith in building trust once again with a local church. You gave over and above to a group of leaders where in the past, church Christian leaders in gatherings just like this have weaponized something like that against you. Some of y'all, you felt the Spirit prompting you to give to a point where you were really going to feel it. And you trusted him enough to do it. Participation rate is beautiful. The second reason we feel good, we really do celebrate not just the unity, but the clarity. 5.8, if it's helpful to think about it, out of 8 million, just under 75%, we think that is a beautiful and stunning amount of generosity. The elders, though we didn't meet the 6 million goal, we did raise more than twice our annual budget in 8 weeks, and that is remarkable for a church of our size and average age. It's an incredible display of generosity and stewardship. We are so honored by everyone who partnered with us through cash gifts or long-term pledge donations. We are humbled, and anyone who sought this in faith, you have to hear, his word is crystal clear. God is honored by you. It's a joy to follow the King. Third reason, we meant it when we said we trust God with the outcome, no matter what. If you remember, the elders shared that while we did see the 18 acres as an amazing opportunity, and we felt led by God to present it for prayer and consideration, we knew then what we know now, that our identity as leaders, as well as the identity of our body, was not attached to the outcome. We didn't feel a pressure to make it happen. We felt responsibility for the process, but we trusted a sovereign God with the results. God is the only one who controls outcomes. Again, we trust the God who brought us here, and he'll take us where he wants us to go. Our priority is seeking him. Draw near to God. He will draw near to you if we have him. We will be fine. I got 2 text messages Sunday night, right? The Sunday night of the fundraiser coming to a close, 2 text messages. Both came from friends, both committed. One's a member, one's a soon-to-be member of the Springs. First one came from a buddy of mine. He texted me, and he said, "What's the total at? What's the total at?" And then he said, "You know you're still awake and watching." Right? Yeah, I got good friends. Now here's the honest truth. I've been asleep for hours. Why? I'd gotten another text hours earlier. Right around 9:45, I got a text from a wonderful woman and a friend. It's a bit extended, but I want you to hear me read it to you because I do think it reflects my heart and the heart of the elders. This wonderful woman and a friend, she said this: "I know you have a tremendous amount of things on your mind." She's alluding to the deadline. "But ultimately, I decided I should share because I want you to know," hear this, "that no matter what the outcome is tonight at midnight, the Springs is doing exactly what was shared in the message today." If you missed last week, we talked about a vision of what God has for a New Testament local church. I have literally, this is her now describing what happened tonight. "I have literally waited a little over 30 years for what happened tonight to happen." She went to her husband, who had never been committed really to faith or to a community of faith or a church. She says, "I shared with my husband that I wanted to join the Springs. I told him that I knew I was meant to be a part of the movement that was going to transform our community." Her words, not mine. "And I was about to tell him that I would not join without him. And before I could finish what I wanted to say, she'd waited over 30 years in prayer." Her husband responds saying he wanted to join too. After he said that this would be the first time he'd want to make a commitment to a community of faith in his lifetime, he quickly responded with, "But does that mean that I have to go up and be in the water trough?" Which for us is code word for righteous baptismal on a budget. I assured him he did not. The river is available. Needless to say, he was relieved. My literal response to her started like this: "This is worth more than any facility. This is all we ever want to be about." I read her text. I thanked my God. I resolved in my heart to trust him because his way is always better. And I went to bed and I slept through the night. As long as God is transforming lives to actually be with and become like Jesus, look more like him, don't give messages about it. Actually have lives that are living messages. The New Testament language there's testifying to it. As long as we are watching the King do that, we are good. He is who we want. He is who we need. So knowing where we've been and then even kind of answering the honest emotional question, how do we feel? How have the elders felt? You have to know this is part of the reason why these are the good old days. But I want to show you what will keep these the good old days. And in order to do that, we have to remind and root ourselves in the truth of God's word. If you would join me in Acts chapter 9, verse 31. There's a Bible in the chair in front of you if you want to follow along with it. The book of Acts, if you don't know where that is, it's like 2/3 the way through the book. Keep flipping, you'll find it. We're going to be in chapter 9, verse 31. Or if you want to follow along on the screen behind me, you are more than welcome to do that. We've looked at where we've been. That's just a recap, a review, and then an answer to, well, how do you really feel? Now I want you to see, though, here's who we are. This is some of the same talk I gave 8 weeks ago with an expanded vision on this is our identity as a church family. If we lose this, the truth is, these will not be the good old days. But by faith, God loves to bring this about. So read with me as we look at this text, Acts chapter 9, verse 31. So the church throughout all Judea and Galilee and Samaria had peace and was being built up, walking in the fear of the Lord and the comfort of the Holy Spirit. It multiplied. I love this text. I really do. Someone should get a tattoo of it. I'm not going to do it, but if you do, I'll buy you lunch. Somebody's going to do it. There's some young male in this buy's like, game on, bet. Yeah, I got you. Lunch on me. The first thing I want to do is walk through 4 principles that this text really clearly says are meant to mark a New Testament church family, body. The bride of Christ is carried out in a local community. These 4 principles, if they mark us, it's what makes these are the good old days actually true and not sermon hype. We aren't after the hype. We are after the King. First principle. You see the church described as what did they have? They had peace, beginning in the passage. For this to be the good old days of our church, we must have peace. I want to describe this as we must cultivate, which means it takes time, attention, thoughtfulness, labor, and it's worth it. We must cultivate a community of love. A community of love. What does peace here mean? Peace is describing this word of living in relational harmony with God, and then from that in overflow with others. Do you know that if you're here and you are a follower of Jesus, the greatest apologetic for your faith is not your knowledge. Apologetics, by the way, is when people come and they say, your faith is dumb, stupid, or wrong. How do Christians thoughtfully, winsomely, in accordance with Scripture, give a defense for their faith? That's apologetics. The greatest apologetic for your faith and mine, Christian, is not what you know. Truth is beautiful, but it's not the first and foremost apologetic. According to Jesus, the greatest apologetic for your faith and mine is your love. By this, all people will know that you are my disciples, Jesus said, if you have love for one another. We must cultivate a community of peace and one of love. And in a cultural moment right now where most local churches are full of politics, sections, backbiting, not resolving conflict, attempting to sweep it under the rug, but really operating in unholy passivity, we won't do it. As well as in a church culture where most people come and we settle for kind of distant acquaintances, where you get to know some people, you know their name, but you won't really let them in to know the real you. Why? Oh, then they could hurt you. We won't tolerate settling at acquaintances. We will earn sacred trust. But we have to live into the vision of what Jesus described as a family, brothers and sisters. We have to actually be connected. Are we really doing this? I'm telling you, after this service, I will gather with over 20 people to what? Make peace. If Jesus Christ so made a way to make peace between us and the Father through a broken body, a shed blood, and him coming back from the grave and then saying, just believe me. All you gotta do is believe. And I'll change you. I'll live in you. You'll walk with me. If he did that, we can do this. We must be a church that fights for true, lasting relational love and harmony with another. Cultivate a community of love. What's the second thing this text says? And was being built up. And was being built up. For this to be the good old days, the way I want to describe this word here, it means to excel still more, which I love. They have this position of peace. They have peace, contentment, love. Yet from love and peace, they excel still more. They don't follow God for affection, for identity, for security. They follow God from it. The language I would say that must mark a New Testament church in the same way being built up, in the same way we must cultivate a community of love, we must hunger for more of God. We live in a culture, oftentimes even in the church, where we honestly tolerate spiritual apathy or indifference. We think a vision of walking with Jesus is I'm just going to simply attend a Sunday service occasionally, and then in my life, I just want to try to do my best to avoid massive, major moral issues. That's the way most people think a journey with Jesus till glory looks like. We here at the Springs, we understand the temptation to spiritual apathy. I know what it's like to be a husband and feel tempted to neglect the spiritual care of my home and my kids. By the Spirit of God, I am invited to reject apathy and by faith, replace that with a righteous, holy ambition. A.W. Tozer has a beautiful quote describing this, where he says, "To have found God and still pursue him is the soul's paradox of love. We are a people at peace with God and one another, yet from peace, we righteously hunger for progress. I want to look more like him. I really do. Do you want to tolerate apathy? That's what steals making a local church the good old days. Imperfect, that's fine here. Don't have it all together? Neither do we. But what are you invited to in life with Christ? Knowing him and hungering to know him more. His promise for those who do this is, you will be satisfied. To paraphrase it, those who are spiritually hungry live happy. Third theme, we've seen cultivate a community of love. We've seen hunger for more of God. What's next? Walking in the fear of the Lord. For this to be the good old days, we must uphold, and hear this, holiness as beautiful. Fear the Lord. Uphold holiness as beautiful. So let me explain. What is the fear of the Lord? Because some of you hear that and you think, well, do I have to be like scared of God? Like, is God some broken, cruel, or perhaps even abusive father figure to where if I say the wrong thing, he just spiritually comes in a way that I don't even understand, like punishes, shames, and like smacks me across the face? God has no anger for you, church. Do you know he can't theologically? Why? Every ounce of wrath he had for you, Christ endured. How does he feel towards you? In a moment, we'll see. Walking in comfort of the Holy Spirit. That shared, what does it mean to walk in the fear of the Lord? Biblically, this is a prioritized reverence, where you say in your heart, God, your will be done, your kingdom come. Doesn't mean you do it perfectly, but that is the longing of your soul. The language I really like, it's a first order affection. God, I want and love you most. Would you make this true in my life? And when that happens, being with him, becoming like him, we radiate holiness. And we live in a time, man. We live in a time where, let's just think culturally, out even inside of the American church, culturally, our greatest value is upholding happiness. Short-term pleasure as long as it does not harm another. Our ultimate goal is short-term happiness, and we as a culture are dissolving. Followers of Jesus, we are meant to offer another way, one that's not opposed to inherent happiness. No, walking with God is meant to lead to abundance and joy. Jesus is about happiness, but that is not our ultimate goal. Our ultimate goal is not happiness. Our ultimate goal is holiness. Why? Because holiness means we are with him. It gives us an ability to, yes, say no, embrace costly moments for greater joy and a worthy price to know him. We are meant to stand in contrast to culture. I think we're meant to stand in contrast, honestly, to much of even American church culture. Because in American church culture, holiness is oftentimes, there's like two extremes that can be taken. Holiness can be seen as like some form of moralistic, pharisaical legalism. And then the other extreme that people take it to is like, well, I'm forgiven by God. It doesn't really matter that much. Aren't all sins sins? We're gonna get married anyways. And what it betrays at the heart is a longing for, I actually want your will to be done. Holiness is beautiful. We must cultivate a culture of holiness, which is not perfection. And what will it evidence? What will it emote as? A longing for more of God, no matter the cost. What's the fourth principle that must mark us if these are to be the good old days? For these to be the good old days, the language says, walking in the comfort of the Holy Spirit. Walking in the comfort of the Holy Spirit. For this to be the good old days, no matter what comes, we must rest in God's presence. You see the language? What's the number one emotion that the Holy Spirit, God the Spirit, wants you to feel from him? Is it get it together? Shame? Try harder. Y'all didn't make 8 million. Give more. He says comfort. You know what that means? Love, security, identity. That he is with you. He's not against you. My son, as I was writing this talk, I made the fatal decision of writing it from home. Terrible idea, okay? I have this tiny little kind of tucked away study, but he knows, and he just walks down the hall. He kept interrupting me, and I'm like, son, don't you know I'm trying to tell people how to love the Lord, and you're killing the vibe? Which means I'm very spiritually mature. Yeah, I'm working on it. He kept interrupting. There came a time I was like, hey, son, I got to work on this. Can you give me that? He says, sure, Dad. He's 4 years old. He comes, he walks out from behind the door, and he closes it. And he doesn't speak correctly, and I love it. If any of you try to change his grammar after I tell you what he said, I will come for you, okay? And I mean it. From the other side of the door, his hand's still on it, because you can kind of hear he just closed it. And he just says, Daddy. Daddy. Yes, son. I got to write a sermon. Yes, son. Daddy, I love you. He waits 1 second, and he says, Daddy, yes, son. I love you a lot. At this moment, my heart is starting to shift from sermon to where it truly should be. I just respond to my boy on the other side of the door in his little 4-year-old voice, and I say, son, I love you a lot too. I hear my boy, he's barefoot, walk down our hallway. It's got this tile floor, so you kind of hear like a pitter patter. It's not a thick door or whatever. He walks down the hall, I don't know, 5 feet, 10 feet, 15, he's down there, and I hear him call back one more time. My son from down the hall calls back. It's not as loud, he's down the hall, and he says, Daddy, Daddy. I don't respond this time. And he says, Daddy, I trust you. I'm sitting there writing a sermon, resolving in my spirit. 2 thoughts. Lord, I love you. Lord, I love you a lot. Lord, I trust you. And then the second thought. My son does feel loved, secure, comforted. I knew immediately in the moment, though. The day is coming when he learns from me that though Dad attempts to be good, he falls short. The day will come when I break that boy's trust. Who knows if I'll mean to? I'm capable of that. I hope I don't make it for that reason. But you know what he needs to know? You know what I pray? All my kids know, and I know, that though I love them as their daddy, there is a Father in heaven who he can trust and is never going to betray it. How can he know it? Because his Father in heaven loves him. His Father in heaven loves him a lot. From that, he can trust him. Church, us resting in the loving, gracious, comforting, peaceful presence of God, we can trust him no matter what. I believe these are the good old days, because though imperfect as we are as a church family, we are striving to live this way imperfectly. This is a reminder of who we must be and who we must always stay. As I have shared with you before, with or without land or a facility to call our own, as long as we remember who God has called us to be. And by faith, we allow the Spirit of God, in accordance with his word, in community as a people, to actually take us there. Most people want to say it or preach it. It's another thing to live it. But be doers of the word, not hearers only, deceiving yourselves. We do not earn his affection. We have it. But from it, God, you can take all of us. Your kingdom come. Your will be done. So as long as we live into that, we will be a place of glory to the King. We want to make his bride beautiful. He's doing that. Now, this brings me back to the overall, these are the good old days. And some of you, if you're an astute Bible nerd, which by the way, we highly advocate here, you're thinking to yourself, John, you forgot something. John, you didn't finish the text. Walking in the comfort of the Spirit, it multiplied. It multiplied. God is in charge of growth. We are in charge of orienting our life to go towards him. So you might be wondering, John, I love the reminder, but what are we going to do? What does the future hold? This is a very fair and reasonable thought. So with that in mind, I do think we now need to turn our attention towards what are the potential next steps? How do we steward this growth? We've recapped where we've been, and we've reminded ourselves of who we are. It's with that now, I'll address some of the items that are directly applicable to the topic of land and a future facility. But I do want to say before we turn this corner is one final pleading reminder on behalf of myself, the elders. What I just shared in regard to our identity as a New Testament, Spirit-empowered, Bible-saturated, gospel-preaching church, it is so easy to overlook these and take it for granted. To think that the normal rhythm of walking with Jesus is to show up on a Sunday, avoid massive moral failure, and you're fine. We want lives of beauty. When you walk with him, you become like him. When you become like him, you'll make men and women like me more like him. You are invited here. We plead with you by faith, from love, not for it. Shine brightly. He's worth it. That shared. Let's talk about next steps regarding finding a home, because these truly do matter. We've talked about where we've been, who we are. Now I want to address what comes next. Now I want to start by sharing, all right, John, y'all didn't get the full 8 million. So what's the big deal? What are y'all going to do? Where are you going to go? Are we going to go 3 services? What's going to happen? What's the answer? What's the future? I have it for you. I don't know. I have no idea. The elders, we don't know. Now you need to hear me though. We don't know. We do not have certainty about where we will go, when it will be, what it'll look like. We don't have certainty about that. Who we will be and what must mark us as a church family, that we have crystal clear certainty. Our strategy will not change. We will continue helping anyone that God sends to us actually love and live for Jesus together. The God who got us here, he'll take care of that. That shared, I do need to come and give some updates for some practical next steps from here. I want to give you 4 of them. 4 of them. First one, if you gave in pledges towards finding a home, we're getting real practical. If you gave in pledges towards finding a home, your pledges are fully released back to you. As promised, we are returning all pledge donations. Anyone who made a pledge is fully released from that commitment. If you so choose to keep your pledge, you should be assured it will go towards solving long-term facility issues and finding a home, wherever that might be. Those who pledged, you're going to receive an email soon confirming you are released from it. However, if you so feel led to continue with that, knowing it'll go towards a future home, just reply to the email. That's it. If you don't reply, you know what the default posture is? You're free. You're free. Those are pledges. Now let's talk about cash donations. So knowing obviously cash donations are different, as the money has already been given, we want to reiterate, that all those funds will still be set apart to go towards facility opportunities in the future. We're not going to take them, put them in the general fund. It goes towards the same cause that you prayed and you gave towards. That shared, if you would still prefer a refund of those cash donations, we are more than happy to do it. You'll also receive an email from our team. And if you'd like a refund, please just reply so we can coordinate and do that appropriately. Some of you might be sitting there, because some of you have asked me this. Some have asked me, wait a minute, John/elders, are you seriously returning those funds? Even though the original issues and limitations still exist? Y'all just got $5.8 million, and you're gonna give it back? The Springs, you'll likely need those funds for future opportunities. You got them. Why not just keep them? Are you really going to give them back? In short, yes, we're really going to give them back. Why is the obvious question. First, because we promised to do so. We want our body to trust their leaders. And a great way to do that, in the language of Jesus, is let your yes be yes. Keep your word. Second, we not only want our body to trust us as leaders, but you need to hear, we choose to trust our body. Here's what we mean by that. We asked you to go before God and ask for this instance. And so many of you faithfully did. We trusted you then. If a future opportunity comes about where we feel so prompted because of a unique situation to bring it before you, we trust you to do it once, we will trust you to do it again. We do not want to be in the business of coercion of people. We want to be in the business of submission to God. We trust him to work in you. Third, or finally, you should also know, though, that this is part of the reason why, for those who do feel prompted by God, we're allowing people the option to keep their pledges in place. I say this with literally zero spiritual manipulation. Zero. That's what's in my heart. Folks have come and shared, John, regardless of the outcome, I still want my future giving, that pledge, to go towards finding a home opportunities. So while again, we do hope many of you will keep a pledge in place, we honor any individual or family's decision not to. As with all giving, the elders won't know who chose to give, who will still give, who kept a pledge, who didn't keep a pledge. Be free. Follow God. You do that, we're going to be just fine. No matter what our future holds, we trust God to carry us through. His kingdom come, his will be done. We meant it then. We mean it now. Second practical update. By way of reminder, we are still moving full steam ahead with the facility across the street. If you were with us 8 weeks ago, we introduced this facility that we are now affectionately calling the Springs Annex. We have submitted plans to the New Braunfels Permitting Office. Due to the fact it's the New Braunfels Permitting Office, our timeline has been extended. We now target a January 1 move-in date instead of November. This will allow us to pull back the curtain in here. This is part of the reason why we're doing it. Pull back the curtain in here, provide for additional office space, as well as midweek discipleship environments. We're really excited. So what are we doing? We're going to keep doing that and just get after it the way we have. Third thing, what about this topic? You need to know that we are going to host a family meeting in late August or early September to simply keep talking about this. While God has given us clarity on the immediate issue of the 18 acres, many long-term questions still remain. And I was asked after last service, what does this mean we'll never go back to the 18 acres? No. I mean, if that happens, okay. But we'll just see what God does. But there is no plan to move forward with that as of now. Why do we want to host this family meeting? To foster unity. What will we do? We're going to provide lunch one Sunday after the second service, allowing everyone a chance to hang out and get to know one another, and then we'll share thoughts and discuss next step considerations. As a body, members, we think we all want to take the next 6 weeks or so to rest, pray, and gather our thoughts. But we also want to stay engaged with these issues. As shared during the initial talk on finding a home, our conviction from day one was that if we didn't get this money, we wouldn't just run out and get a loan to close the gap. And hear me say, we could. Where will all those resources go? Towards health here. It's what we feel led to do, towards health. And I get, not everyone thinks that's the best idea, by the way. And if you're here and that's you as a member, we honor you. That's just where we are. While we have no plans to change that for now, we also recognize we have to keep considering potential options in the future. Why? It's true, the limitations we're facing haven't changed or gone away. Lord willing, if he wants to keep bringing folks to our care, we are still on track to eventually be running out of space on Sundays. While we don't know exactly how God will lead us to address these issues in the future, we are certain that we want to keep discussing them and considering them as a body. So why are we going to host a family meeting? To that end. So would you please stay tuned for details for a family meeting, late August, early September. The fourth one, that email, findinghome@springsme.org, it's going to stay open. Why? Well, we know vast majority, y'all will wait, pray, think, and we'll see you at the family meeting. Some may feel prompted to pray and share thoughts now. Now, I want you to know that if you reach out to that over the next month, please know that the elders and the staff, key members, will be available to respond in care. This is a little deviation right here, okay? Little deviation. I do want to briefly share that I will be on vacation for much of July. Oh, yeah, thank you. That was started by a friend of mine. Why am I even telling you this? For two reasons. I've been planning this vacation. If you've been here since like COVID, I do this every summer, right? It's been planned long before we ever knew about 18 acres, all right? But it's for the cynic in the room who's like, dude didn't get his 8 million and he's gone. Yeah, not true. And if you don't believe me, that's fine, right? Second reason, I mean this with all the affection and love in the world. Don't call me next month. Should I be using sermon time for this? No. Am I still? Yes. Right? They're great key leaders, right? Connect with people. I can't wait to come back and get after it though. I mean that. Someone asked me in the last service too, and you may not care. This man came down with a different concern. I didn't even think of this. He said, hey, what's your longevity here at the Springs? Not that anybody cares. What he's asking about, hey man, how updated is your resume? Here's what you need to know. I am not the Springs. Not me. That was kind. I've never gotten this much support in a sermon. Usually everyone's like, how long till lunch? The elders, staff, the members, God in the middle of it. That's the Springs. That shared, I love the privilege of being here. I'm so grateful for y'all. I really do think this past 8 weeks has been one of the most healing privileges of my life in the role as a shepherd I've ever been a part of. I think these are the good old days. I don't want to waste a moment of it. To recap the practical next steps, okay? To recap, your pledges fully released. If you'd still like to give them, just reply to the email. Second, we're moving full steam ahead with the facility across the street. Third, we're gonna have a family meeting in late August or early September. Stay tuned for details. 4, we are leaving open findinghome@springsnb.org. 3 spiritual things that I'm just gonna introduce today, and then we're gonna unpack it at later times. There's 3 places of spiritual health that the elders, we do feel when we said we feel some grief, we feel quite good, but we do feel there's room to grow. That growth we really think comes in 3 areas. The first is communication. Communication, we mean this in 2 ways, substance and systems. Substance, I know there are members here who when we first introduced land and all that stuff, you were surprised. That's a significant issue. We want to do a better job as leaders, not surprising those who want to know with significant considerations to prayer and see what's coming. So that's one way. A second way we also mean that though, is there are members who this was an emotionally charged topic for you. We really did mean it when we said we want you to come and talk with us. We really do think that while you cannot be known by everyone, your voice can be heard by the people who care. We meant it when we said, come and share with us. We want to develop communication with a sense of family as a body. And then systems. How do we keep getting better from announcements to emails to communicating and updates with our body? The second thing that we want to get better at, communication, long-term vision. Long-term vision. It is so easy for us as leaders and for our body to only think about the local church as this coming Sunday. All throughout the New Testament, you see men and women, leaders in the faith, shepherding and caring for people in the present with a righteous eye on the future. I think for those of my friends, and I felt this, where what we really felt is like, man, I kind of miss the Springs of old. I miss it was small, I miss it was tiny. Like I came here because y'all didn't even have a building. Y'all were like the anti-establishment church. And now getting a building, that's so establishment. I get it. I've had the privilege, and even in my time, of seeing the Springs go from 20 families to now, 900 or so attendees. The core of who we are, though, I believe, and I'm biased, but I believe, we are more captivated and committed to the vision and values of this place than we've ever been. While the external may be changing, the internal, I do believe, is honoring to God. That shared, we think that as a church family, we got to do a better job of discipling us to say, if the external changes but the internal stays the same, man, it's his kingdom. I want folks to come. I remember what it was like to not know up or down, and a church family took me in once. You ever had that feeling? Do you have a vision in your heart, member of the Springs, that you have to cultivate a community of love that's not just for you, but it's for the next 100 people that God might choose to send? Do you have a vision to create a culture where we hunger for more of God that doesn't just build you up, but inspires the next young adult who grew up in a broken, dysfunctional church and then says, wow, I could really be that affectionately known? I could live a life of vision, purpose, and value. I don't have to waste a day, and following Jesus isn't a boring hassle. You have to create that for those here and for those whom God might send. We have to be a people who uphold a vision of holiness is beautiful when everyone else is either like, that's just moral, pharisaical legalism. Or people who just want to go by and say, God loves me, but I can do whatever I want, and they miss out on the privilege of intimacy, fellowship, and joy. We need to cultivate in our hearts as leaders, and we believe in this body, a vision of we must care for who is here. And if God so sees fit, he's in charge of this, y'all, for those he might choose to send. The third thing we do think is stewardship. Stewardship. Let me give you an example of specifically what I mean by that. Stewardship biblically is how do we use our resources to glorify God best? The Bible has a lot of principles to talk about topics of giving, saving, living on the rest, all of that. One of the things that really did come to be true throughout this is I had the privilege of, one, reflecting my own life, and then two, talking with enough people who felt, man, I love this. I'm in, I want to. But man, rising costs at the grocery store, property taxes continue to increase, how much it costs to fill up my car at a gas pump, to honestly, hey John, I got more credit card debt in my life than I want you to know. People wanted to give, but they felt that option was taken from them. Y'all, there's zero shame for that. I got none. I'm excited in my personal life to grow in this, right alongside this church family. But that's the third topic that we as elders really do feel we need to come. Why? Because the vision of God with resources, God does not want to get your money. God wants your money to not get you. God does not want to master your checkbook. He wants Amazon Prime to not master your heart. So how do we, as followers of Jesus in this moment, where materialism is easily a celebrated sin inside the local church, and let's just say inside my life too, how do we actually come to live a vision of Jesus' life where he says, even in this area, you are the way, you are the truth, you are the life? Those are the three spiritual areas that we are going to talk about. Final thing. I walked past this sign so many times I almost stopped seeing it. You know how that happens? But the moments I would see it, I began to see it through a different angle, and then the honest truth is I began to resent it. Why did I resent it? Because yes, it reminded me to be anchored in the present, to cultivate the best of this moment, but also I would sit there and think, but I want the best days to be ahead in the future too. Like when my kids are preteens and they're finally able to really talk and maybe I could sleep through the night, but they're still stuck to me and they need me to go hang out with their friends. So on a Friday night, I gotta drive them and I gotta talk to them. I want those to be the good old days. The times when they're teenagers and they act like they're too cool, yet riddled with insecurity, and every now and then that crack of vulnerability shows up, perhaps late at night, and I just get the joy of meeting them in it in shepherding the soul where they come to see, maybe my dad is not as off as what I've thought. Perhaps when they are a sent off young adult, them coming and thinking through, hey, God, or Dad, would you help me consider a vision of a future? I want to be an international missionary for decades. Or God, Dad, I want to go be this phenomenal marketplace leader. Or Dad, I want to be a welder. Or Dad, I want to be a stay-at-home mom, spouse, and disciple of the next generation. Wherever they land, I want them to call. And if I still have breath in my lungs, by faith, be able to say, these are the good old days. In my family, I want to live in this tension. These are the good old days. And as any family or individual pursuing God in singleness would want, these are the good old days. I'm not going to waste a day. I'm not going to miss a moment. And the best days are ahead. Church, I believe these are the good old days. I've lived in the good old days with the Springs for 7 years now. I believe the best days are ahead. How? If by faith, you and me, we continue to live with peace, being built up, walking in the fear of the Lord, in the comfort of the Holy Spirit. These are the good old days, and the best days are to come. I'm all in on that vision. Would you pray with me as we close in communion? Lord, thank you for this time. Thank you for the gift of it. Thank you for these people engaging, caring, and listening. Most folks do not care this much about the local church. Thank you that they see this place as one of imperfection who does not have it all together, but one who wants to put you at the center. Thank you that they are willing to go through these 8 weeks and more in faithfulness, saying, God, I'll go wherever you want. I'll do whatever you say. Lord, make that true of my life. I don't want to give a talk about it. I want my life to testify to it. I'm going to need help. We as a church family, we are going to need help. We thank you knowing that we walk in the comfort of the Spirit. It's in your name we pray. Amen.